What is up guys, this is RMD Tech and welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be doing something that I consider to be quite interesting, because I've covered a lot of products from Wish in the past. Get it? Wish. I bought this t-shirt just for this video. No, we've covered a lot of videos from Wish in the past, from the time I covered a fake Wish graphics card, a fake GTX 960, to the time I beat Linus Tech Tips to building the first ever Wish PC. But today we're going to be doing something quite different, because we see a lot of videos about really cheap graphics cards that you can buy on Wish. And quite often they'll say, oh, I bought a GTX 1080 for $1. However, we all know going into that it's going to be fake. Because even on the product descriptions on Wish, it even explicitly says that for $1, you're not getting the graphics card, you're getting a graphics card power adapter. And so there's no point even making those videos because everyone going into it knows it's fake already. However, what I've done today is slightly different. Yes, I've bought the cheapest graphics card on Wish, but I've actually got a graphics card. I didn't spend $1, I spent £18 it cost me, and it's the cheapest graphics card I could find, and it's right here in this Nvidia box. Okay, I can already see the Wish shill comments coming back again. I've already had enough of those on the previous videos, so I'm gonna do what needs to be done. I'm gonna just quickly switch shirts back to the usual shirt, okay? That's better. Yeah, I prefer that. This is usually the part of the video where I'd go into details about the crumpled and outdated and poorly cloned box. But I've tried that before in a previous video where I outlined the box of the fake GTX 960 that I bought from Wish. And it's safe to say you guys kind of roasted me in the comments for that because I misunderstood some text on the back and everyone thought I didn't know what integrated graphics was. But I do, I promise. So we're not going to go into the details about the box other than the fact that it's an Nvidia box. So pay close attention to the fact that it's an Nvidia box. If you actually open it up, inside you get a graphics card. That's to be expected. You get a driver CD, identical to the one that we had with the fake GTX 960. You get two little screws, I assume for attaching it to the case, I assume. Not sure what else you'd use it for. And the last remaining thing in here is this manual, entirely in Chinese. There's not a word of English in here. All in Chinese. So if anyone speaks Chinese, you know, feel free to give a quick translation of that for me. Because I haven't got a clue what it says. So it might be important, but we're going to go ahead and ignore it. Instead, let's focus on the card itself. Okay, so according to the listing on Wish, this graphics card is described as a gorgeous new graphics card, GPU HD 6450, 2GB DDR3, HDMI graphic game video cards, PCI Express for gaming. I can probably agree with the majority of that, except for where it says gorgeous new. Okay, because if we go ahead and take this out of the anti-static bag, which is a nice inclusion, it all looks relatively new. There's no dust in it, except from the fact it appears to be slightly bent here, which does make things a little bit difficult because that's going to make it so I can't actually put it into any sort of case. So luckily I've brought along my trusty tool set and we're going to bend it back. So I'm going to guess pliers are probably the way to go. I haven't attempted this yet, so this is, you know, all live. You're seeing my attempts to bend it all back live, and I'm not a qualified engineer and I've got no idea what I'm doing. I'm just hoping it works. And surprisingly, it does appear, I mean, I say surprisingly, that's probably to be expected. It did go back fairly easily. But just bear that in mind, if you're buying a graphics card on Wish, there's a good chance you might have to bend some metal back into place. But that looks okay-ish now, so hopefully it wasn't damaged too much in shipping, and when we put that into the PC, it actually does work. So as I told you guys earlier to pay attention to and remember, the box was labelled Nvidia. Now, if you didn't already pick up from what I described the product as being an HD 6450, and you haven't looked at this logo here, then it actually turns out it's an AMD card, and that's what I was expecting when I ordered it. It's just, it threw me off a little bit when it came in an Nvidia box. And it's a bit weird that all these Chinese graphics cards do all seem to be coming in the same knockoff Nvidia boxes. However, I can't see any sort of reason looking at the card to suspect it isn't an HD 6450. I mean, it all looks in good condition, you know. I mean, I'm surprised at how good of a condition it's in. I mean, if you ignore the bit of metal here. You know, it's all relatively clean. It doesn't look like it's been used, to be perfectly honest with you. It's just overly priced, because this cost me about £17–18. It's an HD 6450 that I shouldn't be paying any more, at maximum £10 for a graphics card like that. There's no need to be paying any more than that. And that didn't even include shipping. And so don't buy this on Wish, because it's an absolute rip-off. But it is technically, by the looks of things, a new card. I can't see any signs of wear or tear. There's no sort of dust in it. It does look brand new and clean. So if you ignore this little bit down here, I suppose you could describe it as gorgeous and new. So I imagine by now you guys are probably fed up of me describing how gorgeous and new the graphics card is. So how about we go ahead, get it installed in this test PC, and then see how it actually performs. So this test PC uses a i5-4690 and 4GB of DDR3 RAM. It would be using 8GB of DDR3 RAM, but this stick here is very dead. It doesn't seem to work, so rest in peace, little soldier. We're going to be going with 4GB of RAM for today's test. So here's the graphics card, and if we just turn off this PC quickly, and then turn it off at the power supply as well, then we should relatively easily be able to get this installed, he says. Now this is all made slightly easier by the fact it has no external power connectors, so it's nice and easy to hook up. It runs entirely off of PCIe power, which is to be expected of a 6450. But obviously was not the case on our fake GTX 960. There we go. We have our cheapest graphics card on Wish now installed in the PC. Now it's just time to actually take the input, plug it into our graphics card, and then see if it will actually turn on and work properly. So fingers crossed. Oh, let's remember to turn it on at the switch again. Right, here we go. Okay, and the fan is spinning on the card, I can confirm that much. But the question is, will we get an output? So if I move my tripod and we have a look at the screen, are we going to get an output of some kind? And you're going to hope that the answer is yes. Otherwise I'm going to have to do some diagnosis and testing. And I'll be honest with you, it looks like I'm going to have to do some diagnostics and testing. Wait, I take everything back. It's working. I just turned off the camera, but now it's working. I don't know why it didn't show anything during post, but the second we got to Windows, it started displaying. So, hooray, we have a working graphics card. Technically speaking anyway. We don't know how well it performs yet. So if we go ahead and have a look at GPU-Z, so we can have a look at some of the details of this graphics card, we can actually see the majority of it seems to actually check out. You know, it all seems to be reporting correctly, and it does, you know, unlike the GTX 960, appear to be telling the truth. And then if we look at these details and then head on over to eBuyer, we can actually find more or less this exact graphics card, you know. It's got a different heatsink on it, that's for sure. However, it does seem to have, you know, it's got the 2GB DDR3 memory, it's got all the same sort of clock speeds and everything. However, it's selling for £37, and that doesn't even include postage. So £37 compared to the 18 plus about £10 postage I paid, I think that came to about £28. So you're already saving money compared to eBuyer. So I suppose if this is a graphics card you really want, then I suppose I might, depending on how it performs in games, be able to recommend buying it from Wish rather than from a reputable retailer. Wow, I never thought I'd be saying that. Maybe I should get the Wish Shield shirt back on. Maybe I should put this back on. All of that's well and good, but none of you care about it. What you're here for is to see how this graphics card performs in games. Now, if you've been a long time follower of this channel, you probably know that I usually start off my benchmarks using Grand Theft Auto 3. Why? Because it's a game that practically any GPU should be able to run. However, today I've decided to crank it up to 1080p to see if it can run it at its most demanding. So we've got the game on maximum settings at the moment, and we're going to see how well we can actually perform. Now, I'm not sure what to expect here, because I can already see up in the corner that GPU usage is at 99%, which isn't a great start considering we're only on the menu, but you never know, we might still be okay. And I say that with a little bit of skepticism because I've just pressed start new game and we do appear to have frozen on this menu. So give me 1 second and I'll see if I can get it fixed. And there we go. So through the magic of video editing, I have now got it working. It was just a simple crash, just needed to restart. But the game is technically running, and it's running at 1080p at the highest settings with the highest draw distance. Now that does have our GPU pegged at 98%. However, we are technically speaking running the game, even if it does look like utter garbage. Yeah, so interestingly here, you can see the CPU is only running at sort of 9–10%, so we're definitely running into a graphics card bottleneck, which is a shame because I was kind of hoping for a little bit more out of this graphics card, even though it is considerably older. I believe this card is originally from 2011, so it's definitely not supposed to be keeping up with modern titles, even though that's exactly what we're going to be using it for today. And so next up, we're going to be taking it up a notch. We're skipping over Grand Theft Auto 4 and heading straight over to Grand Theft Auto 5. And so I'm going to be leaving it with the default settings that it's recommended me, and it's not filling me with much hope because it's gone ahead and recommended that we run at 800 by 600 resolution, which isn't a great start, but really what more can you expect on a graphics card from 2011? So if we go ahead and run the test, yep, and then keep our fingers crossed that we actually get some good results. Okay, so we do appear to be in a position where the story mode campaign is working and running without crashing this time. So fingers crossed that doesn't change. However, as you guys can see on the screen right now, it is in horrendous quality, but it is technically running. So, and whilst it's not overly smooth, like, I'm definitely not impressed by this, it does kind of work. So, all things considered, I will take it. Now, I know and you know that Grand Theft Auto 5 was never going to work on this card. When it was released, it was a pretty bad card. It was at the lowest end of what AMD were offering, and it definitely hasn't aged like a fine wine. But the question is, will Minecraft run? Because Minecraft runs on a lot of integrated graphics. So it will run on the integrated graphics on, say, an Intel CPU or an AMD APU, and that will work fine. And so the question is, will this card be a drawback, or would it actually be better to run on the integrated graphics? Now that is a question I don't know the answer to. I'm inclined to think it will probably run a little bit better with this card. And so just looking at it, just off the bat, it's actually surprisingly smooth. It's not the smoothest experience I've ever had in my entire life. However, on the settings we're running at, which is a render distance of 12 chunks with fancy graphics, we're actually not doing too badly. Sort of, I can't really see what FPS we're running at because MSI Afterburner's in the way, but it does feel, at least to me, reasonably playable. Now, of course, we do need to take into account that this is largely because Minecraft is a CPU-bound game rather than a GPU-bound game. However, that's not to say that Minecraft does not rely on some graphics processing. And so, as we can see here, if paired with a decent CPU, you will be able to play Minecraft on this graphics card. I know that it's off topic, but I've just had this box arrive in the post, and despite its small size, believe it or not, there's actually a graphics card in here. I actually went ahead and ordered a £60 RX 470 off of AliExpress, which promises not to be a mining card. So if you want to see my video reviewing a £60 RX 470, then do be sure to click subscribe, and then you won't miss it in your sub box. And weirdly enough, when and I've just seen this little bit of paper stuck to the side of it. They've declared this as being a document worth $2, which is a nice crafty way of them avoiding import tax. Fantastic. And last but not least in our test suite, we have Rocket League, a game that has system requirements as low as something that's really low, but is yet still as popular as something that's really popular. If you ask me, that's the perfect combination for this graphics card. So how about we see if it can survive? Even at 720p sort of low settings, this game is near unplayable. I can't remember any of the controls using a keyboard because I haven't got my controller plugged in. So I'm also pretty crap at the game at the moment, but the point is it's incredibly slow. If I disable motion blur, we might get a little bit better, but frankly, I don't think this game is really going to be considered playable. It's definitely a lot better with motion blur disabled, but at the same time, it's still definitely not a playable experience. I can't recommend this to anyone. We're already sort of cranking down to 720p. We're still not getting 30 frames per second average. Definitely give this game a miss. This graphics card really wasn't designed to be playing games that were considered modern when the card was released back in 2010. So it's also definitely not going to be good for playing modern games in 2019. And so it turns out there's relatively little difference in terms of performance between the Wish GTX 960 that's fake and the Wish HD 6450 that's real, because they both have practically identical performance, the only difference being that the Wish HD 6450, the real graphics card, doesn't have all of the crashes that the GTX 960 suffers from, because it doesn't have a fake BIOS flash to it, doesn't have any of that fake firmware, and so it does actually perform as you would expect, whereas the fake card has to deal with all of these extra crashes and where it just does not perform as intended. And so, can I recommend either of them? No, it's going to be a no again. So, yet again, we're rounding off a video where people were most likely going to comment saying that I'm shilling for Wish, yet somehow at the end of it, I'm still recommending you don't use Wish to buy a graphics card. This graphics card I spent, including postage, close to £30 on. You can get a much better deal if you buy one on eBay secondhand, because after all, this graphics card probably is secondhand anyway. So if you did enjoy that video, then please do be sure to hit subscribe and like and comment down below. I don't like doing these intros, and let's be honest, none of you guys watch this far anyway. So please continue to watch me. If you are watching this far, then that's great. That's really great. But I'm gonna go now because I've got work to do.